President Cyril Ramaphosa's initial lockdown decision was justified by the time to buy time for health facilities to prepare. South Africans want the country to prosper and the quality of life for citizens to improve. But millions of people live in total poverty and rely on family or intermittent work to get by. The most effective way to lift people out of poverty and improve the quality of life is through education and economic growth. Well, how much has the lockdown affected the already ailing South African economy? To unpack this further, we talk to Economist Professor Peter Bauer. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, Professor, what would you say has been the economic cost of this lockdown to the nation?
The cost of that's going to actually be shown quite soon. We take a look at the different scenarios and how this particular virus plans to pan out. The reality was basically between 2008 and 2019, we saw a steady decrease in economic growth, or more approximate steady decrease, down to about end of 2019, something about 0.2%. Which means already we were seeing pressure on in terms of unemployment and economic growth. And the impact that's going to have now on our change in GDP for 2020 ranges between about, let's say, a contraction of about 10 to about 20%, depending on how this virus pans out. And then much of the issues that we're focusing on when trying to model this particular virus is a very random nature that we're experiencing. So when we are modeling, we're finding that much of the data shows kind of random impacts and random effects. And over the last couple of days, those really large spikes have been of major concern to us. Another big problem that we're going to experience is no matter what kind of scenario that you're planning for in terms of our economy, the re-employment will become a bit of a concern because we're already looking at your official unemployment rate breaking or at least entering into your 30% mark. And what we're now going to see is that depending on this virus, you're going to see a growth in unemployment, but even if the economy was to recover after the impact of this virus, not everybody who's lost their job will be employed back into the economy. And that is a concern.
You know, speaking about the amount of people that have now become unemployed as a result of the virus, one of the chief investment officers at Allen Gray actually mentioned that this seems to be costing more lives than it actually should. I mean, the government has to balance saving lives, which was why initially the lockdown had to be so long to try and prepare the health services, but also the cost of human lives, the cost to the economy. Do you agree with the strategy that the government took to, first of all, buy time for the healthcare system and then begin to gradually reopen the economy?
You know what? A stage regrowth reopening is actually really important. The lockdown strategy that was implemented by government in the first stage was not necessarily a bad thing. But what we do know is that, for example, the business sector and, for example, personal service sectors are two of the biggest sectors that actually contribute greatest to the economy. So as long as we have those two major contributors actually tied down, we're losing a huge amount of money in terms of income and job creation. And remember, for many of these businesses, that lost income is not going to come back again in the near future. And also, if they're also very big job creators themselves, and those businesses are not able to recover, the long-term implications are going to be very big. So yes, on the one side, let's give government due credit where it's due, but the length and the structure of the lockdown is a bit of a concern. Other factors that we need to take into consideration is how the virus is going to impact on us, and to get a better understanding of that, we need to look at factors such as level of inequality within the country, population density within areas, how many people are without jobs, number of people living in poverty. All those are having very serious factors about how many people are going to be impacted. So they talk about this curve and the change in this curve, and you'll see that many of many of the other countries that had experienced this previously had lower levels of lockdown, and so what happened was that they reached like in the United States, they reached very high levels of infection rates. But what has actually happened now is that many of these countries that had a lower lockdown initially are now experiencing a decrease in the number of cases that they're actually experiencing, whereas, for example, at least a decrease in the change of cases, that the increase is decreasing, whereas, for example, many of the smaller countries, especially in Africa, Southern Hemisphere, etc., we're starting to see a large number of increases in the number of cases. And so remember, it's because of other factors other than just just like whether the country is going through lockdown or not, there are other variables that we need to take into consideration.
And then just considering that the country has actually begun to reopen the economy as we entered level 3, do you think that more industries should be allowed to operate at level 3, or should they wait until level 1?
No, absolutely not. I feel that we need to open these industries and these businesses as soon as possible. Yes, I do think that we need to maintain certain standards. For example, we need to make sure that people do take health care into consideration, wearing of masks, hygiene, all of those things are very, very important. But we need to open those businesses and those industries really, really quickly. The reason is that manufacturing plays a very big role in South Africa's economy. So agriculture contributes only, let's say, I'm using 2019 data, so we're looking at about 2.1%. Mining contributes about 8.3%, but manufacturing contributes a whopping 13.2%. And that's a huge job creator. And then, of course, you have all the related industries. So, for example, through the multiplier effect, you have many other industries which are also then impacted by it. So I believe we have to get these industries opened up as soon as possible. And yes, I do believe it's going to have an impact. It's going to, the healthcare system needs to be well prepared for this. But we need to open up the industry. We need to get those jobs up and running. We need to get people back. If you take a look at the dependency burden, for example, the number of people who are earning versus how many people are dependent on those people's salaries, the number is very, very large. And so the longer we're keeping the household income earner out of earning an income, the more detrimental this impact is going to be on our economy in the long run.
And just lastly, Professor, the country is currently in recession. Judging from the different sort of research you've gone through, some of the projection models that are currently available, how long do you think it'll take for the economy to recover, especially if lockdown continues into September or even up until the end of the year?
That's very correct. Yeah, no, we can expect a very long time. When we took a look at the Great Depression of between 1929, America's economy only then started recovering in 2003. I mean, sorry, let me restate that. In 1933, the economy only started to recover. It was a 4-year until the American economy started going back into a boom phase. Much of our recovery is going to depend on what is actually happening in the rest of the world. For example, the growth of China, the growth of America, and the growth of the European Union, because we do a lot of business, we sell a lot of goods to those growing economies. The faster they grow, the sooner we will grow with them. Things that are slowing us down in terms of that are the relationships, for example, between America and China, Donald Trump and his relationship with the Chinese president, obviously the relationships with the United Kingdom and Europe. All of these factors are going to have a serious impact on the length of time it's going to take for South Africa to regrow. But again, if we're looking at the scenario of about 10% to about 20% of shrinkage of our GDP, we are losing money in terms of tax revenue, and that money would normally alternatively have to be respent back in the economy. Another factor you have to remember is about approximately something like about 30% of your tax revenue, so somewhere between 17 and 30% of your tax revenue will be used just to repay the interest payments by about 2023 on the debt that we're generating right now in order to solve this problem. The sooner the growth of this economy is allowed and the sooner the economy grows, the lower that tax burden is going to become, and the more we can use that money to actually refund actual real growth in the country.
Well, let's leave it there, Professor. Thank you so much. Professor Peter Bauer, who is an economist there, just talking to us about the various effects that the coronavirus pandemic has had on the South African economy and the likelihood of it recovering later rather than sooner.